Now we come to another article which shows that World Bank has conducted a detailed study on how the inequality is changing in India. Basically, inequality means that how unequal, right? How the people are different on different parameters. The difference between highs and lows, that shows inequality. How many rich are there and how many poor are there? In terms of wealth, in terms of consumption, in terms of income, can be anything. But the wider the difference between the rich and the poor, wider will be inequality. Now this inequality, mathematically, it is measured through something known as Gini coefficient. Now Gini coefficient, I'll show you the diagram for that as well. Gini coefficient is something that shows that how the difference between the rich and the poor is within a particular country. And Gini coefficient uses Lorenz curve for that. So I'll explain Gini coefficient, I will explain Lorenz curve, and I will also explain Kuznets curve today. This may be asked in multiple examinations irrespective what you are fighting for. Now, Indian inequality and the World Bank's claim, this article published in multiple newspapers but as a very small one, but this is very important for your preparation. Now, recent World Bank report claims that India is one of the lowest inequality level. Sounds weird, right? India has one of the lowest inequality level. That there is a fall of Gini coefficient as far as consumption inequality is concerned. So yes, India's inequality is declining on consumption inequality, on consumption parameter. Now let's understand this, guys. There is person A, right? So there is Mr. A, there is Mr. B, and there is Mr. C. This person is rich, this person is middle class, and this person is poor. Alright, this is poor. Now, when it comes to their food habits, consumption, food habits, right? This person consumes 2000 calories, right? This person achieves like, let's say 1900 calories, and this person goes for 1800 calories, right? Now, inequality, it says that the difference between the richest and the poorest is not much, right? It's just 200 calories. So, from this perspective, you will say inequality is declining. So, consumption wise, yes, consumption wise, the difference between the two is reducing. Rich person does not mean that he is eating like 20 kg of food every day. No. In fact, the more a person becomes rich, the lesser they consume. That's true. This is known as Angel's law. This is known as Angel's consumption law. As the per capita income increases, people consume less because they have to do less physical work. Now, given this understanding, please understand one thing, that this does not give you the true picture. Consumption inequality is falling does not mean people are becoming rich. Still, Mr. A will remain rich and Mr. C will remain poor. He is, let's say, Mr. A is earning 10 lakh per month and he is earning 15,000 per month. There's a huge difference between the two. This is true inequality. So when you talks about income inequality, we are very backward. But as far as consumption inequality is concerned, we are reducing the inequality. At least a good sign somewhere. Otherwise, we are pathetic in terms of inequality. So India's inequality in terms of consumption has been reducing according to the World Bank. Now, if World Bank is saying, we can accept that. Let's see what this is. Now, let's understand what is Gini coefficient and what is Lorenz curve. Now, assume that this green line that you see over here, this is a line of equality. This is a line of equality. Line of equality means the cumulative share of the income earned, cumulative population. So let's say we are at this particular point. This point is point A on this green line. This is the line of perfect equality. Everyone is equal. Now this point A proves what? This proves that let's say 50% of income earned is shared by 50% of the population. So 50% of the population has 50% of the wealth. Then if I reach at this particular point, right, so it will show 90% of the wealth is with the 90% of the population. 10% of the wealth is with the 10% of the population. So more or less the amount of money that country is producing and the population it has an equality, perfect equality, right? So this green line shows the line of equality. On the line of equality it is written 0. 0 means what? There is perfect equality. Perfect equality, right? Now the blue line that you see is known as Lorenz curve. Blue lines are actually, blue line is showing the status of a particular country. Let's say this blue line shows the status of India's population, right? So there are multiple points, let's say point A, B, C and D. So these points shows that how much population is earning how much money, right? So let's say this point A, this shows that the 20% of the population, let's say, has 10% of wealth. Inequality, 20:10. The same is true with point D. The same is true with B and C. So all these points are showing some kind of inequality. What we need is green line. What we have is blue line, right? Now the difference between these two, let's say this area is known as zone, right? Zone A. This is known as zone A. Now this perfect triangle that you see over here, look at this green line and the triangle that it is creating, right? So from here to this point to that point and again there's a triangle. So in this particular triangle that you see over here, we have a red line or blue line. So this is the blue line, which is Lorenz curve, right? Which is known as zone A. So this is known as A. Now let's say the area which is left from the entire triangle is area B. So this is area B or zone B. So Lorenz curve shows the exact situation of a country in terms of income distribution. How much percentage of the population is holding how much income. Now A and B that we have. So this blue and green area, the area between blue and green line and the area below the blue line, this is B. Now what is Gini coefficient, guys? Gini coefficient is A upon A plus B. That's it. What is this? This area that is the inequality, difference between the present status of a country and what should be the perfect. So difference between these two over the entire area, that is Gini coefficient. So this will give you the idea how Gini coefficient is being measured, right? The area which is here over the entire area, because this area shows the inequality. How far we are from the perfect equality. How far? Let's say there is another line which is going from here. So obviously this line shows smaller area. This specific line that I have drawn. So the area of inequality has squeezed, it has reduced down. So in this formula the A will reduce. When A will reduce means the numerator will reduce, you will get smaller value. Now Kuznets says that when the GDP of a country improves, whenever the GDP of a country improves, there is a symbol or there is a sign which says that the overall there is an improvement. So as the GDP increases, initially the Gini coefficient will be high. But when the GDP increases further with the time, the Gini coefficient is going to decline. Now this is shown by a Kuznets curve. Now look at this curve. On this side we have time, on this side we have Gini coefficient. So initially the Gini coefficient is increasing, as you can see, it is going upward. Then after a certain point, right, till here it is known as developing economy. It is known as developing economy. India is in this position right now. After this turning point, it will be called as developed economy, because after this Gini coefficient will decline. Okay. Now India is here. India wants to aspire to be there. So we still do not have achieved this turning point. Now many economists believe that this turning point will be achieved when we will reach $25 trillion of GDP. We have not reached even 5. Okay, what are the consumption inequality? Simple. When people are spending differently. In this terms, understates the inequality. Now, World Bank is saying inequality on terms of consumption has reduced, but still there is some doubts. Okay. Wealth inequality, when the asset ownership of the people remain more or less the same, it's very high in India. It's really very high in India. There are people who have 20 properties and there are people who are living on the rented apartment for their entire life, and not even that. So wealth assessment is very, very wide. The last one is income inequality, earnings and wages, right? Here also India has a very high, over 6, and it is increasing, guys. So income inequality in India is actually increasing. If you remove the top 5% of India's population, India is actually a very poor country. So the contribution in the $4 trillion GDP that we have been laughing around, we have been enjoying around, is largely because the top 5% of India's population is earning a lot, right? It is significantly higher. We have very high, right? It is one of the highest among the globe. Globally, it is one of the highest. Limitations. What are the limitations of Gini coefficient, guys? In this formula, what is the limitation? Number 1, aggregate measures hide the intensity. It says 20% population earn 10% of something. But what about that 20%? What about the 20%? For that, we require Theil index. Theil index give you a smallest possible distribution of the data, right? Which can give you this percentile, as you can see, up to 1%. How much top 1% inequality is there? How much 2%, 3%, 4%, 10%, 90%? So very small changes can be identified, which does not shown in the Gini coefficient. Implications. If India has a very high inequality, what are the implications, guys? There are too many of them. Number 1, it reduces economic mobility, right? Limit upward movement of the bottom 50% population. Once poor, always the poor. So the the bottom 50% of India's population, they are largely poor only. They may have a mobile phone. Rickshaw wala having a mobile phone does not mean he's rich. What quality of food he is having? Is his children having a good quality life? Education, health, that's the point. Lower aggregate demand. Once a poor, always a poor. So their savings of the rich do not translate into the proportional spendings. So the people who are rich, right, very rich, ultra rich, I would say, they have a high savings. But where is their saving going on? We don't know. Social fragmentation, polarization, unrest, fuel representation, politics, vote bank politics, distorted policy outcomes, excess influence of the elite group on the taxation, subsidies and land use, which is also known as crony capitalism, collusive corruption, skewed growth patterns, benefits of the GDP acquired disproportionate to the top 10%. I give you 5, 10 also. Now, even though if you remove the top 5%, it's horrible. Imagine if you remove the top 10% of India's population. What about the bottom 90? It's horrible situation, right? Solutions. Progressive taxation. Ultra rich should be taxed properly. In India, unfortunately, the ultra rich are not income taxed because they do not show their income in terms of taxation. The billionaires in India, their salaries are close to the service class people. Why? Because most of their income are in equities and shares, and holding equities and shares do not acquire or amount to the income tax. Unfortunate. Universal public services, most of the services should be universal instead of targeted beneficiaries. Formal financial assistance, right, or access should be provided. Although we have Jandan account, but still 50% of the most of the accounts remain dormant. Skilling and jobs, because if a person has good skills, they will get better jobs. Better jobs obviously means higher per capita income. Better data, right? Integrate tax, surveys, assessment record to publish accurate inequality. Because see, Gini coefficient and this Lorenz curve, it is more or less, guys, based on hypothecations, samples. Because in India, we still do not have proper household consumption expenditure. We do not have proper household saving, and household basic wealth per capita, per family, per household data is not available. We have not conducted any census till now in the last 80 years. Not even a single census is there which provides that kind of an intensive data. Household income, if you go to a particular household and ask the person how much he earns, he will lie. That's what India is. Okay, so with this, I'm leaving you in this practice question. Pause the video, read it thoroughly, and do answer in the chat box. Let's move to the next one.